It's been 1 week since Class Awakening Part 2 was revealed and the test server is finally offline. In the last few days, I had one opportunity to check out the awakening of the one class that I care about, which is Archer. Long story short, Archer Awakening fucking sucks. But before we get messy with all the bugs and issues, let me tell you the premise of my whole Awakening experience. When I first logged in, I noticed that the UI was designed more modern, clean, and lacking skill slots. I noticed that the slots for F11, F12, minus, and equals were missing from the extended skill slots, and most importantly, the slot for C beside left and right click disappeared. I put a lot of things on my skill bar, and losing 5 skill slots has gotten me worried about how and where I'm going to place the various skills and combat consumables. I have to do my key bindings pretty much all over again. I used to put my mounts on C, but now that's gone, and while I can register C on some extended skill slot, it definitely won't be used for mounts anymore. The other thing I noticed was that archers now have resolve, which replenishes 20 every 2 seconds. At a max of 200, backstep consumes 120 resolve, 80 with a new passive, and 60 when glyphed. Right now there is a bug which prevents backstep to take effect from both the passive and glyph during combat, consuming 120 resolve instead of 60. Now allow me to introduce to you some of the new skills and passives for Archer. First up is Scale Steps. It's a simple looking skill that allows you to move a short distance and cancel the motion of any prior skills. However, it doesn't. It definitely can cancel Radiant Arrow and Penetrating Arrow, but personally, it looks like it can't cancel Thunderbolt at all. It can cancel Rain of Arrows, but goes on cooldown if it's done too late into the animation, and it's the same with the new Tempest Arrow. Using Gale Steps gives you a 4-second buff that stacks up to 3 times called Resonating Bowstring. This buff increases attack speed of Radiant Arrow and Penetrating Arrow, Thunderbolt, and Tempest Arrow by 20%. The worst part of this is that it can consume 70 resolve, so you have to struggle between using Gale Steps for speed buffs or using Backstep to iframe. Next up is the one and only Tempest Arrow. This bad boy does 40,514 skill damage, staggers, and knocks down targets. The issue with Tempest Arrow is that it takes 6 to 7 seconds to cast, requires you to hold down the key until the skill is charged, and doesn't guarantee that you will deal critical damage. The aim also doesn't readjust in the direction of your screen, so you have to be predictive with your aiming. Melodic Breeze. This is the new Deadly Gamble equivalent awakening skills for Archer. It resets Radiant Arrow, Penetrating Arrow, and Thunderbolt upon usage, decreases cooldown of these skills by 50%, increases attack speed of these skills by 50%, and decreases resolve cost of Gale Steps by 20%. It also increases attack speed of Tempest Arrow, so make sure to take advantage of this 20-second duration buff as much as possible. Unfortunately, it's a 3-minute cooldown skill, so it won't have as much of an impact as Deadly Gamble, Mana Boost, Shadow Reaping, or Unleashed. You can decrease the cooldown of Melodic Breeze by 1 second every time you stack 10 focus, so make sure to use Rapid Fire as often as possible. Along with these new skills, 3 new passives were added. The first one is called Secured Range. It is a cancer passive that gives you additional 5% damage when there is nothing within an 8-meter radius around you.
What the fuck?
So basically in Arcane 9, while everyone huddles up behind the boss for tank block, Archers are going to be the only class that's going to iframe the push. Chaser is the passive that gives you a 6-second hit from behind buff when you use Chase, and Speedy Steps decreases resolve cost of Backstep by 40. As I said at the beginning of the video, it didn't work during combat, so I couldn't really test anything properly. Let me just say, this is not something you would use regularly. You're not going to be using Chase in the middle of the fight, Gale Step out of the animation, and use something like Radiant Arrows. I don't see it happening, and you shouldn't either. Fine weakness is that one skill that got upgraded to an Awakening skill. It can now lock onto a target, which increases 20% skill damage of Radiant Arrow, Penetrating Arrow, Thunderbolt, or Tempest Arrow. However, when you lock onto a target, an arrow is marked on the ground indicating the lock, and you have to shoot one of the lock-on skills in the direction of the arrow for Bind Weakness buff to take effect. Otherwise, it does absolutely nothing. The biggest issue for me was that Rain of Arrows is not a lock-on skill. What I mean by this is that I won't be able to use Find Weakness, then Rain of Arrows for the hit from behind buff, then Radiant Arrow to take the buff away from Rain of Arrows. It's a gimmick that worked quite often, and I'm sad that I won't be using it anymore. Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to leave comments on what you think, what you expect, and anything I might have missed, and your prediction on where archers will stand post-awakening. See you guys in the next one.